money. And a serial killer is on the loose. But no one knows why this heinous crime has happened.
You start going over everything again. What have I missed? What have I misinterpreted?
2 decades later, a hot tip warms a cold case. Now it's game on to catch a killer.
It was eye-opening that someone would do something like this. It shocks you.
The unsolved ones, we have to stand up
and approach these cases in a way outside the box.
Let the world know is those out there that did commit a murder, and there are people that are coming after you.
There's just a lot of good people trying to do the right thing.
Because it's something that you have to be passionate about.
Solve this. Bring some peace to the family, at least. Just doing my job.
It's a very cold day in Holiday, a suburb of Salt Lake City, and known as one of the most safe and sought-after places in Utah to live. When Shirley England is unable to reach her very active and community-oriented mother, Lucille Johnson, she drops into her home to say hello.
Her mom is a very busy senior. It's more common than not that Lucille Johnson will be very far from her phone. But Shirley England sees very quickly that something's wrong.
Lucille is lying at the end of the main floor hallway in a pool of blood. A pillow over her face. Blood splattered around her head.
England's first thought is that her mother has been hemorrhaging and holding the pillow to her face to absorb the blood. And on her way to the bathroom, she passes out.
She calls 911, and they suggest CPR, but it's clear to Shirley that her mother is dead. But when she tells the operator there is a pillow over her mother's face, Shirley England is shocked when the operator asks, "Are you alone in the house?"
That's when she knows that her mother has been murdered and she could be alone with the killer.
The operator immediately dispatches police to the crime scene.
I was off and got a call that there was a dead body and looked suspicious.
Patrol officers have already cleared the house. When lead detective Manny Lassick arrives,
I was the first homicide detective on scene. The patrol officers, initially took me through and showed me what they had seen.
Lucille Johnson lays in a pool of blood at the end of the hall with her head against the base of a door.
Now, there wasn't a whole lot of ransacking that I could see, but the violence that occurred to Lucille stood out. There was a pillow over her face.
The scene is quite unusual for a neighborhood where normally a very petite senior should have been living in safety.
Fairly quiet street, decent-sized lots with nice homes in the neighborhood, an upscale neighborhood.
Lucille Minor is born in 1912 in Eureka, Utah. Kind, loving, and accomplished, she is a graduate of the Latter-day Saints Business College and a former member of the Salt Lake Exchange Club. Lucille is active in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, president of the Utah Broadcasting Association, and president of the Investment Center. She marries Howard Johnson in 1933, and they are together for almost 56 years before he passes away in 1989. Lucille Johnson is independent, and after her husband's death, continues to live in the same house where they raise their children. She keeps in close contact with their children, Shirley England and Jerry Johnson. In the summer months, Lucille is up by 6 a.m., working in her garden. She spends her days caring for elderly neighbors or anyone else in need. Her grandchildren take a high priority. She keeps toys stored in the house for when they visit.
Lucille Johnson is healthy. She still drives. She runs all her own errands. She shares an interest in genealogy with a nephew. They work on family projects together. He spends a lot of time in the family home, and Lucille has helped him financially for several years.
But the week before her murder, Lucille tells him she is tired of constantly being expected to contribute financially, and she is going to start cutting back on support.
The day of the murder, a report is broadcast on the local news. Lucille's son, Jerry Johnson, hears his mother's address announced on the radio, but doesn't hear why. At the murder scene, police collect the pillow that was over the victim's face.
Lucille is wearing a red shirt covered with blood, and her body is laying face up. There's blood spatter on the walls and door. She fought for her life.
The height of the blood splatter indicates the victim is on the ground when she is savagely beaten. Near the front door and across the living room, Lego bricks are scattered. Shirley, Lucille's daughter, waves a red flag to police.
She said, no, that'd be out of order. If somebody came over to play, those blocks would be put away, you know. If they didn't put them away, she would put them away. She gave me some history of her mom, how she was a real meticulous housekeeper. She kept her house real neat, clean.
The scene appears to be a robbery gone bad. There are items missing: a high-end purse, some rings, and a necklace. However, there's other valuable items left behind, like a wallet and another necklace. So it's not obviously clear what happened here.
The only clues detectives have are the blood-soaked pillowcase and the pieces of Lego that are indicated out of place by the daughter.
We gathered the Lego blocks that were in the front room, went through, documented, you know, the scene where there was some blood spatter on the walls, down at the end of the hallway, pillow, anything that would stand out as far as evidence-wise. We were there to document and gather.
There's not a lot to go on at this time. It's a very sparse scene. And interestingly, there's no sign of forced entry. Lucille clearly opens the door willingly to someone.
You had your front door, and then you had a storm door that went on it. It had a latch on it, and she would keep that locked, and there were some Lego blocks out in the driveway. We gathered those.
Detective Lastig asks Lucille's daughter if a smooth talker could have persuaded Lucille to open the door. But Shirley is adamant that her mother would have never allowed a stranger into her house. There doesn't seem to be a reason for this, but authorities know something the general public does not. In Utah, there appears to be a serial killer on the loose and who targets elderly women who live alone.
Looking for a way to stretch the dollar? With Insurify, you can cut your car insurance bill in half. Scroll through dozens of prices and tap to switch online. That's it. No phone calls and no wasted time. Go to Insurify and save today.
It wasn't always like this. Dryness made sex painful and awkward. But Reverie's vaginal moisturizer brought back the spark.
I couldn't move like this with vaginal dryness. Reverie's hyaluronic acid is super moisturizing. So I can do this again.
6 across 7 letters?
It's hormone-free. There's no messy applicator, so it fits our routine. Reverie.
Thousands of women have restored their vaginal moisture. Join them at Reverie.com.
My doctor told me I needed to start prioritizing my liver health.
Dose for Your Liver is a clinically backed supplement that supports healthy liver function.
My stomach feels a lot better.
He has more energy. He sees his grandkids more.
Start your liver health journey today at dosedaily.co.
All right, team, saddle up. I want Q1 full index reports by this by noon.
Are you getting any of this?
Yep, Honors got the meeting notes. I'll ask it for action items on the channel. And Maria already asked for a budget reminder. Smart. Got it, boss. Honor, you got this.
They're thinking about their next adventure. You're thinking about their next vet visit. An ASPCA pet health insurance plan helps you afford the care they need. So while they're out living their best life, you can help make sure it's a long one.
I just found out I've been paying for 27 subscriptions. It's like finding out you had 27 kids you didn't know about. Rocket Money? Yes, it was Rocket Money. You had 2 Netflix accounts. I had 2 Fubo accounts. How much money did it save you? $700. I guess if you guys want to save some money, download Rocket Money. It probably will cover the drinks.
The pouch.
The pouch.
Dynasty hammock underwear.
I promise you, you will have found your new favorite underwear.
They're called Dynasty hammock underwear. Soft, sweat-wicking, breathable underwear with a supportive pouch built in.
I don't know why it took him so long to switch, but I'm very glad that he did.
Dynasty hammock underwear will end your adjustments once and for all. You don't realize you need new underwear until you try these.
No more sweating, sticking, or chafing. These are the greatest underwear experience of all time.
Love your first pair or they're free. Upgrade to hammock underwear at Dynasty.com.
The windows come down. The shoes go off. Sleeves go up. The coast is there with open arms. Leave it all behind and settle in. Beat 'em along.
Calm. Download the free app now.
The first beach towel you'll ever love is a sand cloud. Sand-free, extra large, extra soft, and 10% donated for every towel sold. So the best towel under the sun supports the best causes under the sea. Get yours at sandcloud.com.
Watch this. It's all 100% real. Witness what happens to this woman's bags under her eyes in an actual time lapse in just minutes. Nothing has been doctored or tampered with. The very real problem will disappear before your eyes and hers with a revolutionary topical formulation that works in just minutes, and the effects will last for hours and hours. Over 1 million people are using this topical technique to visually reduce puffiness and bags. It works on sagging jowls, even fine lines and wrinkles on the face and forehead. Introducing Plexiderm. In just minutes, you can restore and beautify your face, even look years younger. And the look will last all day or all evening.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm just in love with the mirror right now.
Jump on board and say yes to this amazing $14.95 Prove It Plexiderm trial. You'll see why our customers describe Plexiderm with 3 words. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Order right now. We'll pay your shipping. Operators are standing by.
The True Crime Network. Download the free app.
An active senior citizen is brutally murdered in her own home. Only a few items are missing, and the only thing out of place are a few of her grandchildren's Lego pieces strewn on the floor. But police know that a serial killer who targets elderly women in their homes is on the loose. Lucille Johnson is the 9th elderly woman to be murdered in Salt Lake City over a 10-year span. Between 1982 and 1991, 9 women over the age of 69 are found murdered in their homes.
And police don't know who's doing it, but they do suspect that Lucille could be part of a pattern.
Authorities traced Lucille Johnson's activities that day for clues of what might have happened and who might have crossed her path. The day of Lucille's murder, she is typically active in service of others. She visits the Senior Citizen Center, she shops for groceries, drops off food for a neighbor in need.
At the end of her busy day, she's having problems with her vehicle, so she takes it in for servicing.
She has to leave her car, so an employee from the dealership drops her off at home.
Lucille is last observed alive in the afternoon. A neighbor sees her sweeping the exterior porch of her house.
Shirley intends to come over to Lucille's with a pizza after work, but she's too tired, puts it off to the next day. Her daughter never worries about Lucille, her very capable mother, being left alone.
The victim sustains a vicious attack. There are 24 rib fractures, and her sternum is broken.
There was a lot of beating to the head, chest. There was a bloody footprint. chest, where she was stomped on the chest. And when we got her up to the medical examiner's office, she died from blunt force trauma. Just a severe beating.
There are injuries on the front, back, and side of her head. 2 of the lacerations on the head penetrate the skull. Those injuries suggest the use of a bat or a stick.
The killing is excessively brutal given Lucille's petite size and advanced age. This degree of violence suggests anger, revenge. This killing looked personal. And the autopsy made clear that the victim fights back.
Fingernail clippings are taken and preserved in case Lucille managed to scratch her attacker.
Little old, single, widowed woman living by herself in that house. She's not going to be able to put up a whole lot of a fight.
Directly after Lucille's killing, daughter Shirley receives a strange and disturbing phone call from Lucille's nephew.
It's just a week earlier when Lucille tells the nephew that she's decreasing the financial support she's giving him. Now, in the wake of the brutal murder, he's even refusing to offer condolences.
The nephew makes a comment that's shockingly cold and displays a frightening lack of empathy.
I have my own feelings to deal with, but there are things in that house that belong to me, and I want to be there when you clean it out.
Shirley is reminded that there is, in fact, one person who had a problem with Lucille. As the story spreads, family and friends are growing increasingly suspicious of the nephew. Could Lucille have been murdered by a family member in cold blood over money? At the funeral, Shirley is hoping that her suspicions are unfounded. She approaches the nephew. She's very disappointed.
Even at the funeral, I kept thinking that it couldn't be. It couldn't be. I went over and tried to give him a hug, and it was like a block. Shirley, England.
Lucille's extended family grows suspicious of the nephew based on his odd behavior. Investigators agree. The nephew becomes a person of interest.
Lucille Johnson is laid to rest at a memorial park in East Mill Creek, Utah. And her nephew is taken by police to be interviewed.
I came at him hard. And it's not, well, did you do it? Do you want to tell me about it? You come after him and you go hard with him and you push. He gave us his alibis. You run every one of those down. Every sentence that he gave you, as far as what I was doing that night, where I was, who I was with.
Police compare his footwear size to the bloody shoe print found on Lucille's torso. It's not a match, and his alibi checks out. The nephew is cleared off the suspect list.
By the middle of the next year, police have followed all leads to no avail. And despite a possible serial killer on the loose, police still don't have a solid suspect for this murder.
There's frustration. You start going over everything again, and you got your crime scene photos. You're looking at them all. You're examining each picture again, looking to see what is there. What did you miss something? What have I missed? What have I misinterpreted?
This ferocious killing of a vulnerable senior goes on the shelf. Lucille Johnson's case goes cold.
And then you box up everything that you've got. It gets put into archives. Yeah, it's a little bit personal. If I didn't do everything I could possibly do, and there's this evil person out there preying on somebody else, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Detectives have no idea they've laid the perfect groundwork. They just have to wait for the technology to catch up.
This summer, we're in a race against time as temperatures rise. Abused and neglected animals across the country are suffering right now in the unbearable, scorching heat. They're thirsty and panting, chained outside with no water, and many are desperately trying to hang on for just one more day.
Extreme heat can have a major impact on animals, and we see that all the time. You know, without shade, to be without shelter, without adequate water, and basically just left out there dealing with the baking sun all day.
Will you come forward to help save an animal in distress today? Visit joinaspca.org. Call this toll-free number or scan the code on your screen to be counted for this life-saving appeal. Donate now, and with your gift of just $19 a month, you can help save an animal's life this summer. Go online, call, or scan now. It's just 63 cents a day. We will put your gift to work right away, rescuing animals who might not survive if we don't get to them soon. But the situation is urgent, and tomorrow could be too late for an animal who is suffering in the sweltering heat right now.
In my mind, 1 more hour is not acceptable. These animals have suffered enough.
This is no way for any animal to live, and it's heartbreaking to imagine what they are going through. They're desperately trying to hang on, but time is running out. Your support is the help they need right now. Don't wait.
These animals have been dealing with that environment and probably much worse for a long time.
So visit our website, call this number, or scan the code on your screen, and donate just $19 a month. Do it in the next 10 minutes, and we'll send you this free welcome kit, including our limited edition Animal Champion t-shirt.
We cannot put an end to this type of animal cruelty without the generous support of the ASPCA donors.
If there ever was a time, this is it. So if you sign up in the next 10 minutes, we'll send you this free welcome kit, including this beautiful t-shirt, for taking action right away to save an animal's life this summer.
These animals have suffered enough, and maybe you're going to be the reason why those animals will never have to suffer again.
We're in a race against time to reach vulnerable animals who are barely hanging on. Help rescue an animal today. Go online, call, or scan right now.
The issue of animal cruelty and animal suffering across this country is an enormous issue. It's easy sometimes to kind of disassociate with something that's not right in front of you. Our commercials are showing footage, and it's often a softened version of what is actually occurring in these situations. We see dogs carrying chains heavier than their own body weight. And this is how this dog lives its entire life. Basically a circle. This is its whole existence. We have found dogs with no protection from the elements, to be without shelter, without adequate water. Sometimes they're just left to languish until they die.
And that's why we need your support more urgently than ever. So go online, call, or scan this code to save an animal who's suffering.
When I think about the suffering that I see, it's all terrible. It is so much more common than people think.
And so much worse. But today, you can take one simple action to save an animal's life. Just scan this code, or you can visit our website or call this toll-free number and sign up with your $19 monthly gift. You will save lives. That's our promise. Do it in the next 5 minutes, and we'll send you this exclusive t-shirt and welcome kit.
If you are there in person and you see what we're seeing and you hear the cries and the whimpering and you feel the fear, I think most people would be as outraged as I am.
Please hear their cries, listen to your heart, and help them. Go online, call, or scan now.
Coming up next on True Crime Network. A well-loved senior citizen is murdered in a ferocious attack in her home. She appears to be the ninth in a string of serial murders of elderly women. But when no suspects are unearthed, her case goes into cold case storage.
Although Lucille's case is stalled, the investigation into the deaths of female seniors continues, and within a few years, it looks like there may be reason to reopen her case.
Salt Lake City is an idyllic community, surrounded by natural beauty with a strong central church. A relatively small population, it's a peaceful area that is low on unemployment and crime.
Utah has a dark past. The state is ranked 9th in the U.S. for the largest number of documented serial killer victims.
In the 1970s, while a law student at the University of Utah, Ted Bundy goes on a murder spree of women and eventually stands trial for kidnapping and murder. Arthur Gary Bishop is born and raised in Salt Lake City, a high school honors student and member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. He confesses to the murder of 5 young boys and is put to death by lethal injection in Utah in 1988. Gary Ridgway, born in Utah, is known as the Green River Killer. He preys on vulnerable women and is the second most prolific serial killer in the U.S.
Over the span of a decade, Utah police see a pattern in the murders of elderly women in Salt Lake City.
So there was multiple cases that were looked at that time of elderly women that had been murdered.
Daniel Troyer is 20 years old when he attempts to rape a 71-year-old paraplegic woman in 1979. He is swiftly in custody again for burglary and in prison until the summer of 1985. Weeks later, 83-year-old Drusilla Ovard of Salt Lake City is brutally beaten, strangled, and bludgeoned to death.
Detectives believe that the killer hurts his right hand in the attack, so they distribute a bulletin to patrol officers about a potential daytime burglar with an injured right hand. Soon after, officers catch a man with a bandaged right hand breaking into homes just blocks from the murder scene. His name is Daniel Troyer.
Police strongly suspect Troyer is involved in the death of Ovard and her 69-year-old neighbor, Thelma Blodgett, who was murdered 6 days earlier, but they can't prove it.
This time, Daniel Troyer is sentenced to 15 years for burglary, but is paroled again in 1988 and released to a halfway house. Troyer applies for Barber College. Shortly after, Ethel Lacow, who lives very close to the school, is killed.
Witnesses report seeing Troyer near Lacow's home just 2 days before she is murdered.
Police compare pubic hair found on Lacow's body, and it matches to Troyer.
In 1989, he is charged with Ethel Lacow's murder. However, 2 years later, the judge rules that certain evidence is inadmissible and gets thrown out. The district attorney appeals.
In 1996, the Utah Supreme Court rules in favor of the DA, and Troyer is recharged with capital murder. In 1998, DNA testing is done from the Drusilla Ovard crime scene, and Troyer's DNA is a match, so he is finally charged with her murder as well.
In June 1999, Troyer agrees to a plea deal. He pleads guilty to the murders of Lacow and Ovard so that he can receive a life without parole sentence as opposed to the death sentence. Authorities believe he has killed others, but there's not enough evidence to prove it.
Troyer looks like the kind of killer that would target Lucille Johnson.
But police discover that Daniel Troyer is in prison at the time Lucille was killed. He did not kill Lucille. And with Troyer eliminated as a suspect, the case goes cold until 20 years later.
Police receive a tip from a nephew of a man named John Sansing regarding a murder in 1991. The nephew states he hears on more than one occasion Sansing arguing with his wife Kara Sansing. She threatens to tell police about an elderly woman he admits to killing in Utah in 1991.
In 2013, detectives with Utah's Unified Police Department in the Greater Salt Lake area look for cases that match this tip, and subsequently look at the Lucille Johnson case.
In 2013, I was assigned to our violent crimes unit, and part of my responsibilities in that unit was to investigate current homicides as well as past homicides, cold cases.
In that same year, the U.S. Department of Justice provides a $300,000 cold case grant. It is for cases that can potentially benefit from the advances in modern forensic DNA technology.
When DNA first came out, it was very, very expensive, time-consuming. You could go months before you had any results, and this particular grant that we had at the time was focused on DNA. And as I reviewed the case, I believe there was good evidence in this case that we could test for DNA, tests that weren't available in 1991 or even in the late 90s for detectives to use.
Sergeant Mike Ikiyamashiro, known as Sergeant Mike Ike, oversees the decision of what pieces of evidence will be used for DNA testing.
I looked at the clothing, I looked at photos, I looked at items of evidence collected from the autopsy, and as I searched through that, I made some decisions.
Sergeant Ike hopes that the killer's DNA is embedded within the fibers of the pillow, depending on how forcefully it was pressed down to Lucille's face.
I identified some of the items, clothing, a pillowcase, and I submitted several articles of evidence, and in this case specifically, the fingernails that were collected at the time of autopsy.
And if Lucille fought her killer, as police believe she did, there could be DNA under her fingernails.
And CODIS returns a hit. John Sansing. Sergeant Ike is able to tell Detective Lassick, who is one of the first on the scene in 1991, that he's found a DNA hit for Lucille Johnson's killer.
I let him know about the CODIS hit, the identification, the process that we'd be going through. And from a detective that had that case in the 90s, the only thing you could genuinely see in his eyes is that he was glad. I think that's another great trait of good detectives. There's no pride. There was no resentment. He was just genuinely glad.
John Sansing has a record of arrests that put his DNA on file. In fact, he sits on death row in an Arizona prison for a rape and murder in 1998. But Sergeant Ikiyamashiro doesn't have enough to convict him in the Lucille Johnson case yet.
Although his DNA is found under her fingernails, it could be there innocently. Police need to investigate how Sansing crossed paths with Lucille because they're going to need more if they want to convict him.
Sergeant Ikiyamashiro speaks to Sansing's wife Kara, who's presently in prison herself. She reports that John Sansing worked in Salt Lake City County at a car dealership in 1998. Lucille takes her car in to be serviced on the day she is killed and is given a ride home by someone at the dealership.
The suspect, part of his job responsibilities was to shuttle people back while their vehicle was being serviced. So he had the opportunity to see where she lived, talk with her a little bit, and then return later in the evening when this attack occurred.
Still, this could be argued as circumstantial and isn't enough to seal the case. Sergeant Ike goes to Arizona to interview John Sansing and investigate the shocking killing that lands John Sansing on death row in an Arizona prison.
Most repeat murders have patterns. And these are details that Sergeant Ike may be able to use to prove beyond any doubt that Sansing murdered Lucille Johnson.
Everything is riding on this interview.
This was a unique interview because of the security issues, the status that he was under. It was a crowded room with a lot of security measures in place. So it was very tense from the very beginning.
Tired of wrestling with your sheets every night because they just don't fit right? Don't let twisted sheets keep you up all night.
Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Jack.
And we invented the bed scrunchie to help you get your sleep back. It's so easy.
Just clip it to your sheet, place the sheet on the bed, then pull to tighten.
Bed Scrunchie's magic fit draw cord easily secures any bed sheet to any mattress,
locking it in for that perfect 5-star hotel fit. The secret is Bed Scrunchie's patented 360-degree draw cord and clip system that tightens any bed sheet, mattress topper, or protector so you can sleep tight all night. And when you're ready to change your sheets, just easily unlock so you can wash.
The Bed Scrunchie is one size fits all and works with any mattress from twin to California king, even boats, RVs, and sofa beds.
It's perfect for those thick pillow toppers and deep memory foam mattresses.
Even adjustable beds are no match for Bed Scrunchie.
And you're gonna love this. Bed Scrunchie will convert any flat sheet into a perfectly tailored fitted sheet.
And it even extends short sheets.
And just to prove how strong Bed Scrunchie is, we're lifting up this mattress 8 feet just by the sheet.
And look, the Bed Scrunchie still holds on tight. Amazing!
Watch. With Bed Scrunchie, you can't pull it off. But without it, it just won't stay on.
With Bed Scrunchie, my sheets are always tight. And that means I get a good night's sleep.
With more than 500,000 happy customers,
we guarantee Bed Scrunchie will keep your sheets tight.
So you sleep right.
You think I'm strong? Bed Scrunchie's 10 times stronger.
I'm testing out my Bed Scrunchie by jumping out my bed. And look, my sheets are staying on.
Here's how to get yours.
Call or go online now to get America's favorite bed sheet holder, the Bed Scrunchie, for the special TV discount price of just $39.99. It comes with a 100-night sleep-tight money-back guarantee. But wait, you can get a 50% discount on a second Bed Scrunchie and free shipping. Order now at mybedscrunchie.com.
What's up, guys? I'm Scott Disick, and welcome to my home. Meet Hotel Collection's Studio Centrifuser. I recently started using their centrifuger here in my Hidden Hills home, and this is a must-have product. Their hotel-inspired scents make my place always smell like a luxury 5-star hotel. I don't know about you, but having a home that smells this good is priceless. Check out hotelcollection.com to make sure your house is always smelling good, too.
I just found out I've been paying for 27 subscriptions. Rocket Money, yes, it was Rocket Money. How much money did it save you? $700. Download Rocket Money, it probably will cover the drinks.
All right, time to do some selling. That's going towards rent. Oh yeah, that's going towards girls' night. And that's going towards a new bag.
Your closet is worth more than you realize. Download the Poshmark app and start cashing in today.
For years, I was stuck using traditional foundation. They'd always cake or crease in my fine line. That's why I created Bake, Balance, and Brighten, our award-winning foundation for mature skins. You'll love how it feels and how you'll look. Learn more at laurageller.com.
Powerful stories.
Case goes cold, but it's never forgotten.
Of determined detectives.
We need to find out what happened. I'm gonna solve this.
That got justice against all odds. Almost Unsolved. Next on True Crime Network. A serial killer of seniors is ruled out in Lucille Johnson's 1991 murder. Evidence from the 20-year-old murder is sent for testing, and the DNA search reveals a suspect. But DNA is not enough. Investigators travel to interview the suspect, who sits on death row for an unrelated rape and murder.
When Sergeant Ike interviews John Sansing, he doesn't mention a specific case, but that he wants to know the man's background history. Sansing talks. He unwittingly places himself in Salt Lake City at the time of the killing. This is the corroboration that police need.
And the case that landed Sansing on death row offers Sergeant Akimi Ashero dark new insights.
31-year-old father of 4, John Sansing, is high on crack cocaine. He and his wife, Kara, need more drugs, but they are broke. They decide to rob someone for their valuables.
They also need to feed their 4 children. So John Sansing comes up with a plan. He calls Living Springs Church near Glendale and arranges for a charitable food delivery. They'll get food and rob the delivery person.
At approximately 5 p.m., 41-year-old Trudy Calabrese arrives at the Sansing home with a box of food. She chats with the couple, and as she attempts to leave, she's attacked by Sansing.
The Sansing children are present. They testify that Judy Calabrese begs them to call police, cries that she doesn't want to die. Sansing beats her unconscious with a club as she pleads to praise. He binds her limbs, and with help from his wife Kara, drags her into a bedroom.
Sansing orders his children to watch television in another room, but they overhear events.
At that point, he rapes, tortures, and murders Trudy Calabrese, then steals her jewelry. Afterwards, he looks out the dining room window to make certain that no one has seen anything.
Each of the 4 children see Calabrese's dead body. Sansing, ineffectually, tries to hide the body behind a shed in the backyard. He covers the body with a pile of clothing. But the next day, searchers find Miss Calabrese's truck in a parking lot near the Sansing home.
Inside, there's a piece of paper with the Sansing address. When authorities come looking for her at the Sansing residence, they easily locate her body behind the shed. Sansing, who is driven to his sister's house, admits to her that he and Kara killed Trudy Calabrese. Eventually, John Sansing's father telephones police and reports his son's location. John Sansing knows the police are coming. He does not attempt to flee and submits to custody.
Sansing is charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, and armed robbery. His wife, Kara, is also charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping.
John and Kara Sansing plead guilty to first-degree murder charges.
Kara Sansing claims that she didn't see all of the murder, and she didn't say anything because she was a battered woman under John Sansing. Kara Sansing is sentenced to 25 years, and John Sansing receives the death penalty.
Sansing expresses a desire for their children, who are now in foster care, to get a permanent placement and to go to church.
The similarities between the 1998 murder of Trudy Calabrese and the 1991 murder of Lucille Johnson cannot be denied. Both female victims were bludgeoned, strangled, and had their jewelry stolen, making robbery the likely motivation for the attacks. But it's still not enough to prove anything. Sergeant Ike makes a connection after finding out Sansing's children were present for the Calabrese murder.
Sergeant Mikey Kimashiro sends the Legos that were found strewn in the living room in for latent fingerprint testing analysis.
It was one thing that seemed oddly out of place on the day of the murder. Lucille was too neat and tidy to leave toys lying around.
Small fingerprints are found on Lego pieces. Now, these could belong to the grandchildren of Lucille Johnson, but Sergeant Ike has a long-shot idea.
I actually met with Kelsey Vale, one of the latent examiners at the state lab, and talked to her about the potential of finding fingerprints of a child, but then comparing them to fingerprints of an adult. They're just smaller prints, but the ridge detail is going to be the same. They're just going to be larger.
Kids Lego could make or break this case. Sergeant Ike tracks down Sansing's children. They're now adults in their 20s, but fingerprints never change.
Myself and my partner that went with me, we actually carried around at the time a portable fingerprint station. So ink pads, rollers, fingerprint cards. And as we interviewed the children, we asked them if they would provide us with a sample of their fingerprints. Obviously, at that time, I wasn't disclosing information as to what I was specifically looking for other than trying to find some comparisons to this case.
Police matched the prints of San Singh's son, who was 5 at the time, on Lego bricks found at Lucille's home. He was there at the time she was killed.
Maybe I was a little naive. There are people in the world that will bring family along to commit crimes, and it's tough.
When you hear the details of this particular case, you can see that this individual is barely human. Salt Lake County Sheriff Jim Winder.
My name is Jackson, and I have spastic cerebral palsy. It's a mouthful. One of the harder things is the little things that I need help with. Getting dressed, brushing your teeth, being able to go out with your friends by yourself. Those are hard because you don't want help, but you need it.
Children like Jackson need continued support for the rest of their lives. And you can help. Please join Easter Seals right now with your monthly gift.
The kids that you're helping, their goals is to be as independent as they can. These therapies help my son to achieve that goal.
Easter Seals offers important disability and community services that can change a life forever. Please go online, call, or scan the QR code right now with your gift of just $19 a month.
It really does make a difference. Strengthening with Easter Seals helped me realize I can get through hard things. Don't give up. Keep trying.
Even better.
Please visit helpeasterseals.com. Call or scan the QR code on your screen with your gift of $19 a month. And we'll send you this t-shirt as a thank you.
Your help and your support, the need for it is endless.
Thank you, because there's a lot of people with disabilities out there. People like me.
Please join Easter Seals with your monthly gift right now.
Even though sand cloud is thin and lightweight, they're still as absorbent as a traditional bath towel, yet dry 3 times faster. Your towels fail to dry quickly, resulting in a buildup of bacteria. You will not want to go back to traditional bath towels.
My doctor told me I needed to start prioritizing my liver health.
Dose for Your Liver is a clinically backed supplement that supports healthy liver function.
My stomach feels a lot better.
He has more energy. He sees his grandkids more.
Start your liver health journey today at dosedaily.co.
I need Q1 full index reports to my desk by noon, complete with comprehensive data.
Are you getting any of this?
Yep, Honor's got the meeting notes. I'll ask it for action items in the channel. And Maria already asked for a budget reminder. Smart.
By morning. Got it.
Got it, boss. Honor, you got this.
They're called Shynasty hammock underwear. Soft, sweat-wicking, breathable underwear with a supportive pouch built in. You'd think that underwear couldn't be reinvented. Then I found Shynasty hammock underwear, and I've not been able to wear another brand since. Shynasty hammock underwear will end your adjustments once and for all. You'll realize you need new underwear until you try these.
I'm on my feet all day. I'm up, I'm down. It's nice to have underwear that move with me and feel like they hurt there.
Love your first pair or they're free. Upgrade to hammock underwear at shynasty.com.
The future. The way you see it is said to depend on where you sit. At X-Chair, we think it also gets down to how you sit, which is why our technology is light years ahead. With our groundbreaking LMX technology, bringing hot, cold, and touch into one extraordinary seating experience. At X-Chair, we've got our eye on the future of work, so you can focus on the present. Bring home extra comfort during our big July 4th sale. Get up to $400 off with LMX and FS locking wheels included. Deals end soon.
This is Bella. Bella can do a lot on her own, but she can't get first-rate pet insurance without you. Sign up for ASPCA Pet Health Insurance today to protect the ones you love.
Watch this. It's all 100% real. Witness what happens to this woman's bags under her eyes in an actual time lapse in just minutes. Nothing has been doctored or tampered with. The very real problem will disappear before your eyes and hers with a revolutionary topical formulation that works in just minutes, and the effects will last for hours and hours. Over 1 million people are using this topical technique to visually reduce puffiness and bags. It works on sagging jowls, even fine lines and wrinkles on the face and forehead. Introducing Plexiderm. In just minutes, you can restore and beautify your face, even look years younger. And the look will last all day or all evening.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm just in love with the mirror right now.
Jump on board and say yes to this amazing $14.95 Prove It Plexiderm trial. You'll see why our customers describe Plexiderm with 3 words. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Order right now. We'll pay your shipping. Operators are standing by.
A DNA match is made on the cold case murder of Lucille Johnson. But it turns out that the suspect connected is already in prison.
John Sansing already sits on death row for the brutal rape and killing of Trudy Calabrese. But because of DNA and of fingerprints found on Lego at the crime scene, he is charged with murder of a second woman, Lucille Johnson.
John Sansing goes into overkill to torture and prey upon the weak and vulnerable. What happened to him to make him this way?
John Sansing grows up in a broken home in Alabama. He is a thief and a drug addict, and his mother can't keep him out of juvenile detention. In 1984, she is fed up with his behavior and sends him to his father in Utah. Sansing has little to do with his biological father there, and he doesn't complete high school. He meets his wife Kara at a Salt Lake City mall. Kara Sansing runs away from an abusive home in Bangladesh as a child and winds up in a Calcutta jail. She is adopted from India in her teens, and her adoptive mother describes her as a very tough youth who is negatively impacted by the harsh conditions that she escapes.
Their relationship is volatile, with both using drugs. John beats Kara regularly. They have 4 children together, none of whom are spared their worst behavior. One mystery that remains about the night of the murder is how Sansing gained entry into the home. Lucille's daughter is sure her mother would never open the door to a stranger. It's now suspected that Sansing uses his own 5-year-old son as a decoy. For whatever reason Sansing gave Lucille, she likely relented out of her inherent kindness towards children.
It's speculative as to whether the child was a ruse that was used, but it's certainly a possibility. Lieutenant Justin Hoyle.
While Sansing kills Lucille, it appears he leaves his 5-year-old son to play with the Lego pieces she's saved for her grandchildren.
In 1993, 2 years after he murders Lucille Johnson and gets away with it, Sansing pleads guilty to attempted aggravated assault, a Class A misdemeanor, in a separate case. 2 years later, in 1995, Sansing moves to Arizona. It is there in 1998 that he murders Trudy Calabrese and is swiftly apprehended and sentenced to death. Over 20 years later, John Sansing's son confirms he recalls being with his father in Lucille Johnson's home on the night of February 1st and says he has been traumatized since the murder took place.
I do feel bad for his kids, the things that have occurred by his father and things that he's witnessed. In talking with him and looking at his history, there's been quite a bit of substance abuse, and obviously that takes a toll on people.
A subsequent interview with Kara Sansing confirms her husband admits to her around the time of the murder that he kills an elderly woman in Holiday.
There was things that I believe she's being completely truthful about. I believe there was things that she was probably trying to hide or minimize, her role.
Sansing is formally charged with the murder of Lucille Johnson in 2014. Despite Sansing already being on death row, Detective Akimir Shiro affirms.
It's very important that we prosecute this case for the family. Detective Mike Ikiyamashiro.
It's important knowledge for the officers who dedicate themselves to the pursuit of justice.
There's no way you can't take it home at night. The facts are what that physical evidence tells you. Someone bludgeoned this woman to death in her home for no good reason. That motivates you as a detective to find out not only who did this, but to ensure that you build a case that brings justice to the decedent and to their family.
"47-year-old Sansing pleads guilty to the murder of Lucille Johnson. He receives an additional sentence of life in prison and sits on death row in Arizona."
There's no other word I can think of other than a monster. No regard for his children, no regard for the victim, just trying to fuel that drug addiction. I don't know what normal person would do something like that other than a monster.
It turns out to be a monumental turning point piece of evidence that 20 years earlier, detectives chose to bag a few seemingly random pieces of Lego.
There's something there in the scene that's standing out that isn't normal or whatever. You take it. Is it evidence? I don't know. You don't take it, you'll never know. Had I not taken the Lego blocks, there's possibility this would never have been solved.
Through a federal grant designed for cold cases, Lego evidence revived this investigation, and Lucille Johnson's killer is now known.
Lucille's son, Jerry Johnson, remembers the day he heard on the radio his mother's address, but didn't connect it with a murder. He says he remembers then hearing a voice say to him, "She's with me."
I just had a very peaceful feeling come over me. That peace has been with me ever since. Jerry Johnson.
Jerry Johnson says that he and his siblings are relieved to learn that Lucille was not killed by someone she knew.
I think forgiveness is what closure is. I think we already have forgiven Sansing. Jerry Johnson.
But Shirley England says discovering her mother dead in 1991 has caused her ongoing trauma that will probably never end. She's grateful to police for what they did for her, but she doesn't think she'll ever find true closure.
Did we give them closure? I don't know if that was there for them, but I feel good about that as an organization. We did everything we could for that family.
Whether it takes a few short years or decades, DNA evidence can expose the guilty and bring them to justice.
You commit a crime like this in this community, to our dying days, we are going to pursue you. We will hunt you down, and we will solve these crimes. Salt Lake County Sheriff, Jim Winder.
This is one of the cases that brought a lot of fulfillment to me in my career because I was able to see how the case affected the family, how that gave them what they've been looking for over 20 years. That's what makes it worthwhile, and that's what motivates you.
Powerful stories of determined detectives, almost unsolved. Next. Utah is known as the beehive state because of the hard work of the early pioneers. And the natural beauty of Utah brings in visitors from around the world. But the serenity of Utah's landscape will be tarnished by a gruesome roadside chance discovery. This will lead authorities on a more than 20-year journey for the truth.
it's frustrating. Sometimes it's really tough to get that news or to get to that point where you're stuck.
Cases like this remind you of how important it is to follow up with due diligence when someone calls in anything suspicious.
The manner in which the person was killed and disposed of leads police to a suspect with a history of murder.
We want justice. We want to find out who did this. Justice for victims, justice for perpetrators. We want someone to put handcuffs on.
But justice isn't always swift and can require time, luck, and unrelenting hard work.
The unsolved ones, we have to stand up
and approach these cases in a way outside the box.
Let the world know it's those out there that did commit a murder, and there are people that are coming after you.
There's just a lot of good people trying to do the right thing.
Because it's something that you have to be passionate about.
Solve this. Bring some peace to the family, at least. Just doing my job.
Garfield County, Utah, 1998. One of the least populated counties in all of the state.
Just about 38 miles north of Lake Powell. It's a very open, rural, vast area. It's beautiful country. It's red rock, red sand. Very, very open.
Utah was founded on the lands of the Ute, Navajo, Paiute, Goshute, and Shoshone, and was the 45th state to enter the United States in 1896. But just over 100 years later, in 1998, excitement was building as the state was preparing to host the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, which prompted improvements to building and infrastructure, which meant more workers were required.
Yeah, Utah's grown quite a lot since then. Population, it's really definitely grown. And Salt Lake City itself, I guess, maybe hasn't changed that much. The outlying areas have really grown. There's a lot of outdoor things to do. And it's just a nice place to live. There's good people here. It's a good culture. You know, growing up here, that's why I've stayed.
Utah's population grew to more than 2 million people, and with it, the murder rates increased almost 10%. And firearms were used in almost 60% of murders. On average, there was a new homicide every 6 days. In April of 1998, a couple takes a peaceful drive along Route 276 in Utah, about 40 miles north of Lake Powell in Garfield County near Main and Water Spring.
This particular place was a 2-lane highway and not a lot of traffic. And really the biggest reason people travel that road is to go to Lake Powell, which is a big recreation, which is beautiful. Lake Powell is amazing.
The couple is unfortunately about to make a horrific discovery.
There were 2 people in a vehicle, a husband and wife, just driving along on a nice spring day. And they looked off the side of the road and saw something that caught their eye. What they could see was a sleeping bag, and obviously looked odd to them, so they stopped, and they discovered that there was a body that had been wrapped up into various layers. So they called police. The sheriff's department responded.
When we receive a call to investigate something suspicious, you have to assess the situation, then evaluate the method by which you were contacted before investigating. It's easy to brush off something that could be a duffel bag or something similar, but cases like this prove the importance to follow up and see for yourself.
The driver of the car reports to local police the strange object they saw on the side of the road.
That was the discovery of the body. At this time, she was a Jane Doe, unknown. The investigation began, and they utilized the assistance of the State Bureau of Investigation, and they worked jointly right from the beginning.
The body of the unknown victim is moved to the Utah State Medical Examiner.
So the body of a woman that was discovered, she had been packaged in multiple layers of plastic, duct tape, tied with rope, a sleeping bag, carpet, more rope. So it was very intricately wrapped, packaged, layered. Some interesting facts about the body is the fingertips have been removed. Post-mortem after death, according to the medical examiner. The cause of death was a small caliber, close contact gunshot wound in the back of the head.
When a person is shot at close range to the head with any type of bullet, the effect is going to be immediate. They will die.
But that wasn't the only thing that they noticed.
The body was very well preserved. There's really no trauma to the body other than the contact wound at the back of the head, but it was frozen to the core. And, you know, April in that area of Lake Powell, it's certainly not cold. She's not frozen from the elements.
Authorities believe that the body had been stored in some sort of deep freezer, large enough for the body to lie flat. A typical residential freezer wouldn't have worked. It would have had to have been an industrial or commercial freezer.
It's hard to speculate on why someone would kill and then freeze a body. But essentially what they've done is preserve the body. Freezing slows down certain aspects of decay, so it actually assists us in the autopsy, especially if it's been days or weeks.
So that was pretty unique circumstances to the body, and of course that made it very difficult to identify her. We knew what she looked like, but we had no fingerprints and really no other way to try to verify the identity of the victim.
In 1998, fingerprints were one of the best ways for investigators to focus on evidence and clues. But without that option, because the fingerprints were cut off, they looked to the autopsy for clues.
Of course, the victim was taken to the Utah Medical Examiner for the autopsy. The evidence was collected, taken to the Utah State Crime Lab, looking for fingerprints, hair follicles, and again, DNA was there, but it wasn't like it is today. The evidence didn't get them anything. They didn't find any fingerprints. They didn't find anything that helped them. The only known DNA or hair that they found belonged to the victim.
With little to no evidence or clues to the body's identity, police are at a loss as to whom the killer could be and where. Authorities are having a difficult time identifying the body without fingerprints.
There are various ways for a medical examiner to identify a body. Usually fingerprints are the first way to identify a person, but that only works if their fingerprints have been previously submitted to an organization. If that fails, they could also use dental records and DNA. Failing all of that, they could also use presumptive methods that won't actually identify the person, but will help identify physical attributes in hopes that it'll help others identify that person.
With few leads to help identify the victim, authorities reach out to the public for assistance. They describe the body as having multiple dental restorations, freckles on the face, tattooed eyebrows, and several small moles, including a distinctive mole on her right ear. She was believed to be Hispanic or Native American.
So they went to the media, they did some flyers and posters to identify the victim, who effectively became known as the Maiden Water victim because she was found near the Maiden Water Springs area.
With limited clues to go on, authorities cast a wide net, rounding up known criminals and people in the state who they think might just be connected to the murder of their Jane Doe.
This summer, we're in a race against time as temperatures rise. Abused and neglected animals across the country are suffering right now in the unbearable, scorching heat. They're thirsty and panting, chained outside with no water, and many are desperately trying to hang on for just one more day.
Extreme heat can have a major impact on animals, and we see that all the time. You know, without shade, to be without shelter, without adequate water, and basically just left out there dealing with the baking sun all day.
Will you come forward to help save an animal in distress today? Visit joinaspca.org. Call this toll-free number or scan the code on your screen to be counted for this life-saving appeal. Donate now, and with your gift of just $19 a month, you can help save an animal's life this summer. Go online, call, or scan now. It's just 63 cents a day. We will put your gift to work right away, rescuing animals who might not survive if we don't get to them soon. But the situation is urgent, and tomorrow could be too late for an animal who is suffering in the sweltering heat right now.
In my mind, 1 more hour is not acceptable. These animals have suffered enough.
This is no way for any animal to live, and it's heartbreaking to imagine what they are going through. They're desperately trying to hang on, but time is running out. Your support is the help they need right now. Don't wait.
These animals have been dealing with that environment and probably much worse for a long time.
So visit our website, call this number, or scan the code on your screen, and donate just $19 a month. Do it in the next 10 minutes, and we'll send you this free welcome kit, including our limited edition Animal Champion t-shirt.
We cannot put an end to this type of animal cruelty without the generous support of the ASPCA donors.
If there ever was a time, this is it. So if you sign up in the next 10 minutes, we'll send you this free welcome kit, including this beautiful t-shirt for taking action right away to save an animal's life this summer.
These animals have suffered enough, and maybe you're going to be the reason why those animals will never have to suffer again.
We're in a race against time to reach vulnerable animals who are barely hanging on. Help rescue an animal today. Go online, call, or scan right now.
Poshmark is the perfect side hustle. It got me through school, a new job, and getting into my first apartment. There's so much I can sell. Bags, accessories, home decor, and it's so easy to sell on Poshmark. You can do it in a minute. I love it.
Calm. Download the free app now.
LitterRobot has now solved the litter box problem for over 1 million pet parents around the world. Hi, I'm Brad Baxter, founder of Whisker and LitterRobot. 25 years ago, I inherited 2 cats and an overflowing litter box. I have a background in engineering, so I was thinking of ways I could automate the litter box process. The result was LitterRobot, a fully automatic, self-cleaning litter box. You'll never scoop again, and your cat will always have a clean bed of litter. Join the Whisker family and try LitterRobot today.
Hey, what's up? It's the People Shark here, Damon John. I'm going to give you a tip that I have never shared with anyone. This tip is about how to create the wow factor in your home. Every person that comes into my home comments about how amazing it smells. It's all thanks to Aroma 360 scent diffuser. We feel like we live in a luxurious hotel every day.
And I love how evenly it sets our space.
I highly recommend that you go directly to aroma360.com to get yours today.
A couple driving along a southern Utah highway spots something peculiar on the side of the road.
There were 2 people in a vehicle, a husband and wife, saw something that caught their eye, so they stopped and they discovered that there was a body.
Concerned, they call the authorities. Authorities in Utah find an object wrapped in a sleeping bag, the deceased body of a female. The maiden-water victim, as the press would describe her, had been shot in the head at close range, and then wrapped and tied up with rope in various blankets and carpets.
Shortly after she was killed was frozen, so that was pretty unique circumstances to the body, and of course that made it very difficult to identify her.
Another roadblock in finding the identity of the Jane Doe and the killer is where the murder actually took place. Was it in the state of Utah or another state and then discarded in Utah?
It's very difficult with limited clues and evidence. It's there. You know it. And sometimes it's a new approach that can revive an investigation. The key is not to be discouraged by the lack of evidence, remaining confident that you are qualified to work the case and determined to solve it.
despite having previously been frozen and inadvertently preserved. Authorities are no closer to an ID for the body, as the fingertips were cut off at a right angle, robbing investigators of one of the quickest ways to identify a body.
The evidence was collected, taken to the Utah State Crime Lab, looking for fingerprints, hair follicles. Again, DNA was there, but it wasn't like it is today. So when they processed all of these things, ultimately, the evidence didn't get them anything. They didn't find any fingerprints. They didn't find anything that helped them. The only known DNA or hair that they found belonged to the victim.
There are many roadblocks that investigators face when dealing with a Jane or John Doe. Normally, with an identified body, you are able to find relatives and work from there. You can explore the victim's entire life, their work, family, friends, and their home. You start to get a good idea of their habits, but without an identification, you can't rely on any of those things. You cast a large net in hopes of catching a lead.
Casting a wide net, authorities round up known criminals and people in the state who might be connected to Jane Doe's murder. Unfortunately, not one of the 12 suspects were proved to be connected with Jane Doe.
They did develop some potential suspects in regard to this case. However, they were all ruled out. They conducted some interviews, they executed search warrants, and ultimately they could not tie any of those individuals that really had no connection to this death. Working all those different angles and aspects that were known and available to law enforcement at the time were done, and they worked jointly with the Sheriff's Department and the State Bureau of Investigation. But ultimately, the lead's exhausted and it went cold.
You can view letting persons of interest go free a couple of ways. First off, it's disappointing. It doesn't matter if it's one person or 12. It's frustrating to let a suspected person go. However, you also rule someone out. This does help in the investigation because the list of suspects is narrowed down.
Because the victim was Hispanic in appearance, investigators contact various Catholic dioceses and parishes in Utah, Colorado, and Mexico to see if they are aware of the missing person fitting Jane Doe's appearance.
You really have to follow up on every lead that comes in. When there are no leads, you have to dig deeper and create different approaches of investigation. This is a job that demands you try everything you can to find justice for the deceased.
Investigators are having a difficult time finding any real leads in the case.
There's a certain protocol to follow when investigations cross state lines. You have to work with local authorities and keep them informed of your actions and objectives. This ensures there's no miscommunication and everyone is working towards the same goal.
They just got to a point where they exhausted all of their leads and really had nowhere else to go with that.
Another thing hampering the investigation is the location of Utah itself, as it shares borders with 5 other states: Idaho and Wyoming in the north, Colorado in the east, Arizona in the south, and Nevada in the west. As well, the southeastern corner touches Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado.
Geography certainly affects how your investigation will proceed. If the location borders another state, it's possible your suspect either came from or returned there. When you're in the middle like Utah is, there are so many directions that a suspect may have come from or relocated to. It's almost like finding a needle in a haystack. The killer could be anywhere.
Investigators thoroughly re-examine the site of the murder for any possible evidence they may have missed, but find nothing.
It's frustrating when you're vested into something and you put all this blood, sweat, and tears into a case. You've done everything you can do, everything you can think of. To have it just go cold, it's frustrating. Sometimes it's really tough to get that news or to get to that point where you're stuck.
Until the year 2000, investigators diligently work on the case, but are no closer to finding the killer or the body's identity.
And we do get passionate about what we do. We want answers, right? We want to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig. Looking at the victims, we want justice. We want to find out who did this, who could do something like this. We want to hold people accountable for that. We want someone to put handcuffs on.
Much like how investigators found the frozen body, the case has gone cold. It now seems unlikely that this Jane Doe will find her justice.
Accidents happen everywhere and every day. Sweep it up the easy way with the Helio Air Broom, the lightweight, flexible broom that's sweeping the nation. In one pass, it gets it all. Watch, ordinary brooms only get half the mess, but Air Broom's Ultra Flex blade is specially designed to lift and grip and leave nothing behind. And for anything that hits the floor, it's a one-stop shop with the Helio Dustpan. For pets, it's the best. It easily removes pet hair on all floors. The Helio Air Broom gets the big stuff, yet precise enough for the finest dust. Use it wet or dry. Clean spilled milk and cereal, and an impossible to clean broken egg. Plus, it rinses clean every time. For hard surfaces like tile, it's the best. If you've got expensive hardwood floors, the Helio Air Broom is guaranteed to sweep without scratching. Plus, it gets into corners quick and easy. Use it in the bathroom. It'll sweep up hair, nail clippings, and floss. And with its telescopic handle, it becomes a squeegee, too. Air Broom's sleek and slim, so you can store it anywhere. Watch, Helio's specially designed lift and grip Ultra Flex blade effortlessly removes dust and hair on carpet, keeping your home mess-free. You'll love Helio or your money back guaranteed. So get your ultra lightweight Helio Air Broom at helioairbroom.com for just $29.99 or call 1-800-970-6899 now. Order today and we'll include our Helio dustpan absolutely free. We'll also throw in the Helio Mini, yours free too. Use the Helio Mini on your couch or furniture to clean fur quick and easy. And for the car, watch as Helio Mini cleans fur trapped in your car's carpet better than a vacuum. That's right, you can get the Helio Air Broom plus the Helio dustpan and the Helio Mini. A $60 value for only $29.99. So order now.
Hey, smell check? We've all done the smell check.
You're good.
You're good. Trust me, I'm good. Thanks to Claire V, you don't need to. Claire V is an oral probiotic for vaginal odor, recommended by over 3,000 gynecologists. Claire V provides long-term relief from vaginal odor, itching, and discharge. Try it yourself at clairev.com.
Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. Like that ready to launch stage, that open for business stage, that sell it everywhere until you sell out stage, that count it up, ship it out stage, and that, wait, did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Whatever the stage, businesses that grow with Shopify.
The future. The way you see it is said to depend on where you sit. At XChair, we think it also gets down to how you sit, which is why our technology is light years ahead. With our groundbreaking LMX technology, bringing hot, cold, and touch into one extraordinary seating experience. At XChair, we've got our eye on the future of work, so you can focus on the present. Bring home extra comfort during our big July 4th sale. Get up to $400 off with LMX and FS locking wheels included. Deals end soon.
This is the first ever TV commercial for a beach towel, a SandCloud beach towel. Sand-free, extra large, and worth advertising because they're worth buying. Buy them at sandcloud.com.
What is the dumbest thing you've ever wasted money on?
I was paying for 2 Netflix accounts over like 3 years.
How'd you figure that out?
I saw an app that shows you all the monthly subscriptions you have and how much you're paying.
What is the app called?
Rocket Money.
Hi, Grandma. I played baseball today.
Oh, that's great.
What position did you play?
First base.
That's where Grandpa used to play.
When our hearing wouldn't allow us to use a regular phone, it made us feel isolated.
It became difficult to communicate with our friends and family.
Clear Captions was an easy solution for us.
Clear Captions provides captions on a phone like captioning on your TV, so you can see what the caller is saying live as they say it.
Making it easy to understand and respond immediately.
There is no insurance or Medicare required. Clear Captions service is provided at no cost to you through a federally funded program. We deliver, install, and train you on how to use your phone, all at no cost to you.
Give your loved ones the independence and connection they deserve.
Call now to see if you qualify to get a Clear Captions phone at no cost to you. Call 1-800-921-4979. That's 1-800-921-4979. Coming up next on True Crime Network.
The body of an unidentified female was found on the side of a southern Utah highway.
So the body of a woman that was discovered, she had been packaged in multiple layers of plastic, duct tape, tied with rope, a sleeping bag, carpet, more rope. So it was very intricately wrapped, packaged, layered.
When authorities discovered the body, it was extremely cold, indicating the body was kept in a freezer for some time before being left on the side of the road.
So she had been in some type of a deep freeze. The way that she was laying, horizontally, would have had to have been in some type of a commercial freezer or refrigerated unit to be frozen. A residential freezer would not be big enough.
There are 12 people that investigators interview in relation to the murder of the Jane Doe, but none of them turn out to have any connection to the murder. The autopsy the medical examiner performs confirms the few facts that investigators are aware of. Her fingertips were cut off.
And of course, that made it very difficult to identify her. We knew what she looked like, but we had no fingerprints and really no other way to try to verify the identity of the victim.
Investigators continue to work on finding the identity of the killer and the Jane Doe, but have no credible leads. The case has gone cold.
They worked this case very actively for about 2 years, and they really did everything that they could do. The only known DNA or hair that they found belonged to the victim.
The case stays cold until 2008, 10 years after the body was discovered, when there's renewed interest.
In 2008, a major with the State Bureau of Investigation determined to open this case back up and relook at things, retest evidence. It's been 10 years. Let's see if there's any developments with the evidence, the DNA.
In 2008, the Jane Doe case is reopened.
An investigator was assigned to the case, and stuff went back to the state crime lab, and they tested things again for everything that you could think of.
It's hard not to get your hopes up. There is a renewed optimism that investigators feel when a case is reopened. A lot can change in the span of 10 years in all aspects of an investigation, from collecting and detecting evidence to a memory from someone that wasn't disclosed before. Someone looking at a case with fresh eyes might be able to see the thing that was staring them right in the face.
Investigators check different databases for a possible match on their Jane Doe.
DNA databases are becoming increasingly important and useful to a case. It's an opportunity to compare the DNA of your victim to DNA across the country.
Unfortunately, no matches are found in the North American Missing Person Network database, or other databases for that matter. By 2011, things are looking bleak for investigators, as every avenue they have pursued so far has come up empty.
There is genuine excitement when you get a new lead on an old case. Officers never forget that somewhere there is a family and friends missing a loved one. You want to be the one to tell them what happened. It's discouraging when all those new leads don't pan out.
But soon, the cold case is about to get some promising news.
The FBI contacted an investigator of ours, Sergeant Ryan Manfleet, and the special agent, Johnny Grusing with FBI in Denver, contacted him and said, hey, we think there may be a connection to your case and your body to the Scott Kimball.
For the first time in 13 years, there is a solid lead on a possible suspect in Colorado and the murder of Jane Doe in Utah. It isn't hard to track down Scott Kimball, as he was already in custody.
And Scott Kimball was currently in custody and been convicted of 4 murders and was serving a life sentence. for those 4 murders, but he was suspected of other murders as well,
including the Maidenwater victim. The one-time FBI informant, Scott Kimball, was sentenced to prison in 2009 for the 4 murders. He also tried to escape from prison in 2017, so authorities were familiar with his name.
Several things pointed toward Scott Kimball. His victims, the way that some of them were killed, tied up, packaged, discarded, where they were discarded. 2 of his victims were discarded in Utah, rural Utah, in general area and general type of as our Maidenwater victim. One of his victims, his uncle, Terry Kimball, was killed in Colorado, was also wrapped in some plastic and bound with rope. And looking at the knots that his uncle was bound with were very similar to the knots of our victim.
Watch this. It's all 100% real. Witness what happens to this woman's bags under her eyes in an actual time lapse in just minutes. Nothing has been doctored or tampered with. The very real problem will disappear before your eyes and hers with a revolutionary topical formulation that works in just minutes, and the effects will last for hours and hours. Over 1 million people are using this topical technique to visually reduce puffiness and bags. It works on sagging jowls, even fine lines and wrinkles on the face and forehead. Introducing Plexiderm. In just minutes, you can restore and beautify your face, even look years younger. And the look will last all day or all evening.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm just in love with the mirror right now.
Jump on board and say yes to this amazing $14.95 Prove It Plexiderm trial. You'll see why our customers describe Plexiderm with 3 words. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Order right now. We'll pay your shipping. Operators are standing by.
We have a deal. Thanks, everyone.
Can you imagine if it was a million instead of a billion?
We'd be so fired.
Check the outer notes.
Yes, multiple meetings say billion with a B. We've got this.
Otter, you got this.
Looking for a way to stretch the dollar? With Insurify, you can cut your car insurance bill in half. Scroll through dozens of prices and tap to switch online. That's it. No phone calls and no wasted time. Go to Insurify and save today.
They're called Shynasty hammock underwear. Soft, sweat-wicking, breathable underwear with a supportive pouch built in. You don't realize you need new underwear until you try these. Love your first pair or they're free. Upgrade to hammock underwear at shynasty.com.
They're thinking about their next adventure. You're thinking about their next vet visit. An ASPCA pet health insurance plan helps you afford the care they need. So while they're out living their best life, you can help make sure it's a long one.
As you get older, your liver health becomes an increasingly important part of the aging process. We created Dose for your liver to make taking care of your liver easy. Dose is an organic blend of liver-supporting ingredients and is clinically backed to promote healthy liver function so that nothing's holding you back.
Wait a minute. With Litter Robot, I never have to scoop your litter box again. This can't be real.
Oh, it is. After your cat exits, Litter Robot automatically cycles, separating the clean litter from the dirty clumps, dropping them into the tightly sealed drawer below.
And I'm hearing voices. Must be a dream. Which means I can fly. Oh. It is real.
Litter Robot is real. LitterRobot.com.
The windows come down. The shoes go off. The sleeves go up. The coast is there with open arms. Leave it all behind and settle in. Get them along.
Powerful stories. Case goes cold, but it's never forgotten.
Of determined detectives.
We need to find out what happened. I'm gonna solve this.
That got justice against all odds. Almost Unsolved. Next on True Crime Network.
The unidentified body of a woman is found along a Utah highway, wrapped up and tied with rope. There is little evidence available to identify the body, as the killer had cut off the fingertips. Authorities hope that sharing a picture of Jane Doe on local newscasts will bring some new leads. They end up interviewing 12 people, but unfortunately, none of them can be connected to the murder. Investigators worked the case for 2 years, but are unable to find the identity of Jane Doe. or who her murderer is. The case goes cold. But then, in 2017, there's hope once again for the Maiden Water victim.
So the FBI contacted an investigator of ours, Sergeant Ryan Manfley, and the special agent Johnny Gruesing with FBI in Denver contacted him and said, hey, we think there may be a connection to your case and your body to Scott Kimball.
It isn't hard to track down Scott Kimball, as he was already in custody.
Scott Kimball was currently in custody and been convicted of 4 murders. One of his victims, his uncle, was also wrapped in some plastic and bound with rope. And looking at the knots that the uncle was bound with were very similar to the knots of our victim.
One focus of the investigators was the ropes and knots used in the Maiden Water victim's case, and the cases that Scott Kimball had been sentenced for.
So actually the FBI recommended a knot expert who could take those knots and analyze them. And we did. So that's kind of pending, right? And that takes some time. So those ropes become kind of significant that way.
Scott Kimball is questioned about his possible involvement in the case of the Maiden Water victim.
It's a very interesting interview, as you can imagine. We talk about a lot of things in regard to this case.
The reason we're here, Scott, is we've had some information coming up on a cold case homicide out of Utah that was from 1998. Maiden Water, Tickaboo area. Let's be honest. If you had any physical evidence on any crime, you can arrest me. If you had fingerprints, if you had DNA, if you had a witness, if you had any of those things, you would arrest me. But you can't have those because it wasn't done.
Ultimately, he wouldn't make any admissions or statements about it and claim he didn't know anything about it. And that before, he was just playing games with law enforcement when he was implying he had knowledge or involvement.
I knew that if I was going to claim responsibility for things that I didn't do, I'd have to have information about it. It was a way to get out of the situation I was in. It was a way to get attention. It was a way to get all different things. And so, in the end, he won. He got me back in this place.
It's a control thing. He likes to manipulate and control. So he didn't admit to anything, but it didn't necessarily rule him out for us.
Investigators finally get the results back from the rope examination, and it's not good news.
Ultimately, the results of the rope more or less were inconclusive as far as it more or less it didn't help us tie it to Scott Kimball.
In 2018, authorities agreed to participate in an episode of the program, Dateline, which will focus on Scott Kimball. Investigators were hoping the 2-hour episode would bring in new clues and leads, because it's shown all over North America.
And at this point, they felt like, well, why not? Let's do an episode on Kimball with a tie into the Maiden Water case and see what we get. So that does happen, and Dateline does a 2-hour episode on Scott Kimball, which is very interesting when you watch that. We do a tie into our case here in Utah. My hope was to get some tips, some leads from this. So it goes out, Dateline's a big, obviously, national program.
Despite the high hopes investigators had for the show, after the episode airs, no tips came in. Investigators are disheartened that no new leads came up after the episode. Weeks later, they send out a media release to local news stations.
So we wait a couple weeks and we do a local media release with what we had to, again, draw attention back to this case and to this victim, still not identified. The photo of the victim's face that we had was a picture of the medical examiner taking, which is of her face. It wasn't gory or graphic. Had never really been released to the public. And we decided, well, let's try and release sketches, and it's not the same. Let's release her photo and see if anybody recognizes her. So we do. We do this media release, and this is now in September of 2018.
Finally, investigators get a real tip. A woman from California is doing her own research on the Jane Doe case and finds something interesting in the NamUs database.
NamUs is a national database managed by ultimately US DOJ, Department of Justice.